This is the Fifth Estate winning headlines, your media police post. Brought to you by the Fort Hall School of Government, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. But we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 19th of May 2020 and I am 2J.
I am JM.
And I am GK, and in case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, Uhuru endgame is to impeach RUTO, allies fear. In the Standard, how RUTO lost Jubilee to Uhuru. And in the Star, RAILA to get key job in Uhuru deal. Where shall we begin?
I say let's start with the Daily Nation.
All right, let's go.
Yes, so the methodical deconstruction of William Ruto continues. The Nation reports that the Tanga wing of Jubilee is now fearful that the ongoing purge in the Senate and National Assembly, as well as the proposed changes in House committees, is going to culminate in the impeachment of the Deputy President. So they say that more bloodbath is expected this week as the President wrests control of the party and Parliament. Yeah.
And it says here that the DP RUTO has maintained uncharacteristic silence and is doing a tactical retreat.
I mean, yesterday, apparently he gave them a survival kit on how to, deal with this onslaught.
Yeah.
So
let me say two things by way of advice. First, from the Dictator's Handbook, we learn that democracy is the illusion of choice. Presidents the world over are not elected. They are installed. They are selected in boardrooms by what we call an invisible elite, also known as the essentials. Now, the trouble for Ruto is that he has been storing his treasures with the masses, who will count for nothing in August 2022. The second is that indeed, in my view, the impeachment is inevitable. If President Kenyatta is a student of the Moi School of Politics, which he is, we should expect nothing but total annihilation of the DP. And here's why. Machiavelli urges the prince to crush his enemy totally. And he says, if you leave even one ember alight, no matter how dimly it smolders, a fire will eventually break out. So if Ruto's not finished, he will emerge even stronger and he will seek revenge.
Wow.
So this is the time to finish him. It's going to happen.
But I wonder, the president didn't finish off RAILA like many thought that he would.
He gave a handshake.
Yeah, he gave a handshake instead. So what's to say that he may not extend another form of handshake to the DP?
Good point.
And the fact that Ruto has retreated means that he's trying to survive right now. So he's trying to figure out what his best move will be.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll see another handshake.
I will say, in regards to the headline, it's rather obvious. We've been saying that impeachment is the end game for a couple of weeks now. So Daily
removing
Nation,
all the obstacles
to
impeachment at the House.
Yes.
Okay, so shall we pack it or toss it? Or shall I read the criteria?
Toss it for obviousness.
Well, first we have a 3-part criteria that we use to break down the headlines. We ask ourselves, is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? Or is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? You're saying it's lazy. We've been saying this.
We've been saying it.
Yeah, we have been saying this.
Okay,
yes.
I will toss
The Daily Nation.
Onto the Standard. How Ruto lost Jubilee to Uhuru.
And I think we should question whether this is actually true or not. But in the Standard, they are saying that the Deputy President's men have made a series of political and legal blunders that cost him key posts, and with it a chance to be the party's flag bearer in 2022. So I think it kind of touches also on what the Daily Nation has been saying.
Yeah.
And so the DP Ruto's allies, apparently because of their negligence, have appeared to have helped their rivals seizing control of the ruling party. So we talk of the NMC, the NEC, and essentially because they did not file their objection to the NMC, what do you call them? The nominees, yes. And they lost in the 14-day deadline. The president's nominees then just essentially are able to sit in. And the NMC is in charge of the NEC, and the NEC sets the agenda for primaries, for the choice of presidential candidate, for coalition agreements, and a lot more other things.
Yeah, and you see very clearly they want to form coalitions.
Yes.
And so this will be key.
Yeah, so what the Standard is saying is that because the NEC had not met since 2017, I think what they're suggesting is that the DP possibly got complacent because from my understanding, he had the upper hand in the NEC.
Yeah.
What that means, I'm not here. I'm not entirely sure.
I mean, that's a valid point, because
Yeah.
he would have consolidated power in Jubilee using the formal structures,
Yes.
such as the NSC, and that's what the Standard is saying.
Yeah.
But his failure to do that,
Maybe
basically,
they got complacent.
yeah, got him to lose the party.
Yeah.
Shall we look at the Star and then decide who will get our winning headline?
Yes.
So in the Star, RAILA to get key job in Uhuru deal. And the story basically is that there's going to be a country economic recovery team, which will have multi-agency representative. So you have who do you have here? Sorry. You have the industrialization cabinet, you have devolution, you have agriculture, tourism and treasury. And they're saying that RAILA will be the one to head this team.
Yeah.
But then there's also a source there that says Mudavadi would like that this team stay apolitical. So it'd be purely technocratic. However, is this a reality? Can you divorce
No.
politics from
You
this
can't.
everyday decision making?
Mudavadi is dead wrong.
Yeah.
We need politicians back in cabinet, back in decision making positions which interact with the public every so often
Doesn't it
to restore confidence.
Doesn't it feel that Mudavadi is trying to be opposition at every cost? He's just trying to say the opposite of anything he can find the opposite to say
I
to.
think
Just irrelevant.
he's trying to
Just irrelevant.
create that voice because clearly there's no opposition as we speak. But politics is everywhere, and politics determines how we make decisions and where resources are distributed to.
But
So
GK,
it is
I would
everywhere.
ask, what is the benefit of having a political CS?
Because they're able to articulate the president's legacy, they're able to say what has been done. When you don't have a constituents that you talk to, you don't have the oomph, the energy to just go out there and keep talking about the good things that you're doing. Many CSs are doing very good things, but they don't have that political voice to just put it out there. And I think that's a disservice
That's
to the
what's
president.
missing.
Henry Kissinger told us perception is everything in politics.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And
So-
I really hope that we could all get the type of job security and political security that RAILA possesses. If he's going to get another
job.
appointment, so who do we give it to between the Star and the Standard?
Yeah, I think the Star lifts the veil of ignorance. It shows us another job Raila is going to get.
And
Good
it's
for him.
forward looking.
It is forward looking.
Yeah? So perhaps we give it to the Star.
Yes.
We toss the Standard. And we have it. The Star gives us our winning headline. Onto the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a 3-part criteria. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective or just plain lazy? Shall we begin with the Daily Nation?
Yes.
So in the Daily Nation, hey, wow, okay, we have a laundry house, a laundry area, and in it we have many mamafuas. We have one, which is a caricature of the president, Uhuru Kenyatta, with his lasso, and he's rinsing his Jubilee kikoi, but also holding the Jubilee kikoi is Gideon Moi, caricature of him, and he's wrapped his nice lasso, Kanu lasso, reminiscent of olden days. And then behind them you can see Wiper candidate or Wiper head, Kalonzo, with his wiper on his head, and he's hung up his Wiper t-shirt, and it looks very tattered.
Yeah.
And then next to him you have a caricature of Odinga, and he's also putting up pegging up his ODM t-shirt. Very interesting times, and it says
Very humorous rendition.
cleaning up for a coalition.
What makes me laugh is just the imagery of Kalonzo. He just looks so happy to be included, His t-shirt may not look the best. He's probably not offering much, but he's happy to be have a seat on the table.
This cartoon is actually unfair to Kalonzo. Kalonzo is offering a lot. He comes to a coalition with a sizable number of voters.
That's true.
Very
I love the
funny.
cartoon. That's great.
Really, really funny. Shall we move on to the Standard?
Yes.
So here in the Standard we have
Quite dark.
a crucified Oscar Sudi. And he has his tongue out and it's tied to a hammer.
Oh gosh.
But basically that it was his own doing.
Yeah.
That he hammered himself into this position.
Yeah.
What is the
context
of this?
the context here is the Saturday press conference that he had with Kimani Ngunjiri, the MP for Bahati Nakuru. And they were essentially threatening the president, and they said that they will even reveal the killers of Chris Msando in 2017 elections, amongst many other things that they will reveal.
And they went so far as to ask Kinoti to arrest Sudi over his remarks in relation to that death.
Yeah, so yeah, someone came out in response,
Yeah.
one of the ODM MPs saying that Sodi should be arrested. What's interesting here, what I've observed, and this is what's likely to happen. So the RUTO camp has gone from first attacking Uhuru Kenyatta. They had been attacking him perpetually until last week when he did the purge, and now they're threatening him. But soon they will be negotiating. They'll go to the negotiating table, and then eventually they'll start pleading. They'll get on their knees and they'll start begging the president, please just have mercy on us. Please.
And I suspect in the meantime a lot of things will be revealed. You know,
absolutely.
Why were they not telling us who killed Msando before this?
Yeah.
Otherwise, dark
Anyway,
cartoon.
very dark cartoon.
But I like it.
Okay, shall we park it?
Yes, park it.
Okay, so
Just
we
toss
parked 2 for 2, all right?
Just okay, park for now. Let's consider the last one.
Finally, in the Star.
What do we have here? Okay, so we have government evictions. So we have a crane, but the crane has a suit on, which is interesting. But then you also have a graph that says stay home, and then you have the rubble, presumably the aftermath of the demolished homes in Rai.
In Rai.
Flattening the curve. This is such a pessimistic cartoon, my goodness.
Yeah.
I think Ozone is back into his old habits of trying to put too many ideas together
In one cartoon.
in one cartoon, you know. If you're trying to be inspiring and tell people to stay home, then you're going to talk about demolitions.
You're right,
Is he
TJ.
saying that the demolitions are helping to flatten the curve? I don't...
In fact, we should rip this one. Not even
But
toss it,
maybe
rip
he's
it.
trying to be ironic. He's saying government is saying stay home, but yet you are
take
demolishing
away
the
the-
homes that they're supposed to stay in.
But,
so maybe
but those
there's-
Kenyans were paid to leave those homes.
Yes, we do know that.
Yeah. This
I
is what
think-
happens in Kenya.
I think it's pessimistic.
Okay, so do we
Toss
toss
it.
it?
I think we toss that. The
Okay,
Star,
so it's
please.
between Standard, Gado, and Ozone.
Okay, what is the criteria though? Is it meant to be positive?
Humorous, dry, satirical, pessimistic, effective, or just plain lazy?
I think we go with the political one. I think that the Daily Nation is fantastic.
And
Cleaning
it's
up
great.
for a
That's
coalition.
humorous. There you
Yeah.
go, Daily Nation gives us our winning cartoon. And what is our final thought?
And now our final thought. In continuation, looking at some of the greatest speeches ever made, today we turn to Winston Churchill and his speech, The Finest Hour. So actually 80 years ago today, the 19th of May 1940, a 65-year-old Winston Churchill spoke to the British people for the first time as MP, and this is in the midst of World War II. But this speech was given on the 18th of June 1940, when then Prime Minister gave what has now become the most famous speech entitled Their Finest Hour to the House of Commons. And this is after France had been overrun and the British were regrouping after the Battle of Dunkirk. So Churchill delivered this inspiring speech, this declaration of hope in the face of uncertainty and courage in the face of defeat. And I think I'll just focus on the last few sentences that seem to really capture the essence of this speech. And he says, "Let us therefore brace ourselves to our duties, and so bear ourselves that if the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will say, this was their finest hour." And so the year was 1940, and it was possibly the most desperate hour during World War II. The Nazi Party was rising to power extremely quickly. And you have Poland, Norway, Denmark, Belgium, the Netherlands, and France, which had all fallen under German control. And Britain was the only country standing in between Adolf Hitler and control of Europe. And so Churchill's speech came at a time of deep despair, anxiety, and fear about the future. And it's considered widely to be one of the greatest political speeches ever given. And it rallied a war cry to a weary Britain at a time when it appeared that the country was losing World War II. So when Churchill began to give this speech on the floor of the House of Commons, his former parliamentarians knew that June 18th, the day he gave the speech, marked a significant date in British history. And that's because it marked the 125th anniversary of the Battle of Waterloo. And for those who studied history, you will remember, this is when the British troops under the Duke of Wellington defeated Napoleon, the Battle of Waterloo. So his speech immediately fell on very welcome ears because the citizens of England had endured a very frustrating period and ambivalence, and this to them was known as the phony war. And it was called this because you have the army troops on the front line of Europe, you have the British Navy which is operating across the Atlantic, but political leaders at home were refraining from using an all-out force against Germany. And you had even some parliamentarians who were trying to negotiate for peace with Hitler.
With Hitler.
So the British foreign policy was sowing seeds of cynicism and apathy amongst the public. The people were completely unhappy about this, and they were asking, why is nothing being done? Why are we not attacking Germany when we're supposed to be at war? So England had been preparing for war against Germany, and they had been preparing for bomb raids as early as 1938. And the people lived under this daily weight of fear and a threat. Food was rationed, posters and cartoons warned people of espionage and spies. There was even speculation that German paratroopers would land disguised as nuns. Everybody had to carry a gas mask, and food was rationed very tightly. But despite all of these deprivations on the home front and this phony war that was happening abroad, it became clear for the people in the spring of 1940 that Winston Churchill was going to be the only leader who could be trusted to fight against, or to stand up rather, against Germany. He was a very aggressive man, and while that rhetoric today, the speech that he gave, may sound very overblown and quite old-fashioned, at that time it seemed exactly right. And it struck all the right notes, and it really rallied the people together against this common enemy. And I think we all know how World War II ended.
Fantastic. So interestingly, in the first half of his speech, he really lays, the ground for what he's trying to do. And his first thing to do is a call for unity. So just like yesterday in A House Divided, Abraham Lincoln, knew he could not lead a country that was divided. So Churchill sets out to do the same thing. So early in the speech, he declares a moratorium on second-guessing and blaming the previous administration. So Chamberlain, the former prime minister, had really taken an appeasement strategy, a containment strategy to Hitler, just like you've said. They didn't want to face Hitler head on. And now he was here saying, you know what, we will not look at the past. He says, if we open a quarrel between the past and the present, we shall find what we have lost, that we have lost the future. And so he says we have to come together because Britain is in a dire situation and we must come together in the house. But he was also doing something quite clever. Politically, he was sort of sheltering himself from any future criticism of any decisions he might make in wartime. So you're saying forgive that guy before, but also hoping that they'll forgive him as well for any decisions he takes. The second part he takes on is a vow to fight on. So through the speech, he continually emphasizes that Britain and the British Empire would not give up. And this strong resolve to fight is one of the hallmark themes of this speech. And Churchill is very frank about the threats that are facing Britain, and he outlines them. And he says that successful German attacks could lead to, the Nazis invading Britain, just like they have the other European countries. So it's a very real threat. And Churchill acknowledges that this grim reality and how Britain will respond to the threats. So he goes on to the next one. He literally tells us Britain's military preparedness, from the Royal Air Force to the British Navy, and he lays out the details of how prepared Britain is. And he says the disastrous military events which have happened during the past fortnight have not come to me with any sense of surprise. So he's not sugarcoating the fact that they've had some failure in the war before. But he's saying moving forward, I will be frank with you, I won't sugarcoat it, but this is how we're moving forward. And this gave him credibility as well as his military expertise background. So then he goes, he starts to evoke, World War I imagery, saying that the Navy succeeded then and it will succeed again. This time, right? Then he moves on to the British Royal Air Force, and he asks the great question, can Britain succeed against German air assaults? And he actually here points to a weakness in the Royal Air Force. He says we may not be as strong as Germany, but we will be able to gather our forces and be prepared. And so after expressing confidence in the British military, Churchill then acknowledges that the Germans will likely unleash a very powerful bombing spree on Britain. And here he turns to one of his most important themes again, that his belief that Britain will be able to stand up to this German onslaught. And I think that's what he keeps going on to. He says British people will carry on. They will keep calm and carry on. Yes, in spite of it. And that everybody, rich, poor, whatever, has to come together in this moment. And I thought that was really cool.
Powerful speech.
So I'll dissect the speech using 3 lenses. The first is form, content, and then the ending. By way of form, Winston was a very organized thinker, and you could see this throughout the speech. He used what you call thought modules, and a thought module is a single idea which carries all the necessary supporting material in it. So in other words, you make a point and then you expound on it. And what thought modules enable you to do is to think logically about what you write and what you want to develop, so that it's logical and it sits well without any glitches in the mind.
Yeah.
The second is content. The speech was really crafted with the audience in mind. And so it takes on a very candid tone, and that's ideal considering that he was talking to parliamentarians who are also another branch of government. And so it gave a tangible record of their preparedness as well as their limitations. And you see that he references that he has been given confidence by the Air Force, by the infantry, and by the Navy that we can overcome this one. But also Germany is a very strong contender, so we should approach cautiously.
Yeah.
And the third is a very strong ending. He gives a very poetic ending, a formidable one, and he says, and I quote, "The Battle of France is over. I expect that the Battle of Britain is now about to begin. Upon this battle depends the survival of Christian civilization. Upon it depends our own British life and the long continuity of our institutions and our empire. Hitler knows that he will have to break us in this island or lose the war. If we can stand up to him, all Europe may be free and the life of the world may move forward into broad sunlit uplands. But if we fail, then the whole world, including the United States, including all that we have known and cared for, will sink into the abyss of a new dark age, made more sinister and perhaps more protracted by the lights of our perverted science." And finally, he says, "Let us therefore brace ourselves to our duties, and so bear ourselves that if the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will say, this was their finest hour."
Wow.
He was such a great orator.
He really
Such a
was.
good one.
Yeah.
So on a day where we had a winning headline from The Star and a winning cartoon from the Daily Nation, I want to leave you with a quote from Winston Churchill. He once said, "Success is not final and failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." So carry on. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also find us on TV. We're on GoTV, Pan Free to Air, and Star Times. Have a lovely evening.